Hello, I'm Roger Moore for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals with an important message about foie gras. Anyone who has ever seen ducks and geese skimming across a lake in a graceful landing probably knows that these energetic birds are delighted to be alive. They are interesting individuals with distinct personalities who, in the wild, recognize and develop committed, caring relationships with one another. They are meticulously clean and even keep their nests free of debris. Ducks are natural athletes who fly hundreds of miles each year and fly as fast as 60 miles per hour. But on today's foie gras farms, ducks and geese are denied their every desire. They will never even see a lake or stream, never breathe fresh air or feel sun on their backs, and never fly at all. Here they are abused in ways that will be illegal if they were cats or dogs, and they are slaughtered when they are only 3 months old. Foie gras, which means fatty liver, is a painful liver disease that should be treated by a veterinarian, but is instead cruelly and intentionally induced on foie gras factory farms throughout the world. As revolting as it is to eat an animal's diseased organ, the cruel treatment of the birds is even more disturbing. Ducks and geese on foie gras farms are confined to tiny crates and cages that are often so small that the birds can't spread a single wing. They are packed inside dark, filthy sheds where they live surrounded by their own waste, without access to so much as a blade of grass or a breath of fresh air. Imagine having pipes jammed down your throat and food pumped directly into your stomach repeatedly so that you felt as if you might explode. This is what young ducks and geese endure every day solely to satisfy the demand for foie gras. Through this painful force-feeding process, birds have as much as 3 pounds of food pumped into their small bodies every day. In human terms, that's roughly 45 pounds of pasta every single day, until they develop a disease that causes their livers to enlarge up to 10 times their normal size. The pipes scrape along the inside of the terrified birds' throats, causing intense pain, bruising, and deep gashes. When the liver, which is supposed to clear toxins from the body, becomes diseased and massively enlarged, birds often become sick and unable to move. Many birds tear out their own feathers and peck at and injure each other as a result of extreme stress. Sick, diseased, and unable to move under the extreme weight of their livers, many birds are unable to defend themselves from rats gnawing on their open wounds. Investigations into foie gras farms in the United States and Europe have all turned up the same thing: sick, dead, and dying animals, many with holes punched through their necks. An investigation by the Animal Protection and Rescue League found one farm where ducks had their wings twisted together in tightly packed cages and bloody beaks jammed into cage wires. At another farm, birds were dangling by wires as blood spilled from wounds in their necks and formed pools on the live birds below them.
This duck was killed so cruelly. He could not even scream when his throat was ripped as he hung upside down. The blood splashed out from his body. As we watch the animal's horrible twitch, we can't even imagine such indescribable pain. Not if we lived to be 1,000 years old could we ever imagine such misery and the suffering perpetrated on just one bird. And yet, such pain is visited on bird after bird. The killing goes on, sentient being after sentient being. Ducks and geese have webbed feet designed for swimming. But in foie gras and duck meat factory farms, they are deprived of any pools of water to swim in. The birds' webbed feet often become infected from standing on metal grating and from ammonia burns caused by the huge amounts of feces in the sheds. Covered in his vomit of repeated force feeding, this bird languishes in an isolation cage in a foie gras factory farm. Workers spray paint on the birds to indicate that it's time for them to be killed. The horrific treatment of animals in factory farms causes many birds to die prematurely. Baby birds used by the foie gras, meat and egg industries are never allowed to meet their mothers. They are forced to face the horrors of factory farms alone. In foie gras factory farms, buckets of innocent dead birds are piled up in unbelievably large amounts. Force feeding of large amounts of fatty food ruptures the organs of the birds. The pipes that are shoved down their throats not only cause intense bruising, they also rip off the birds' tongues and puncture their throats. Some birds do not make it to slaughter. They die when their stomach rupture and burst. Precious and vital lives are treated like dirt on the ground. Does righteousness exist, and where has it gone?
Foie gras farms are so cruel that force-feeding birds has been banned in many countries, including the United Kingdom, Israel, and Switzerland. In 2004, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger also signed a bill that will outlaw both the production and the sale of foie gras in the state of California. But many restaurants continue to serve this horribly cruel product. Please join me and countless kind people everywhere by never eating foie gras and by telling your friends, your relatives, and restaurant owners that foie gras is a disease, not a delicacy. Please call Peter or visit stopforcefeeding.com for more information. Thank you.
Blood is on our hands when we continue to eat animal products. The crimes of cruelty and brutality towards animals will continue in the extreme until men finally accept a higher law of nature that will cause a disaster to our world. This is absolutely not a joke. Global warming has become progressively worse on our planet. One of the reasons behind global warming is that greenhouse gas is produced mostly by the livestock industry. Animal agriculture does not only consume almost all of the limited and precious resources of the earth, it is also a terrific fact that the immense and endless wastes that come from factory farms pollute our water sources and threaten our ecosystems.
The waste that results from a feedlot, for example, of say 20,000 animals, can end up being as much waste as the whole city of Albuquerque. Unfortunately, the cattle don't pay for sewer hookups, so what happens is the waste goes into the ground or into the groundwater or into the surface streams, waste that can be destructive and harmful.
I'm worried about stockpiles of fertilizer in this valley because when the wind blows, the fertilizer also blows. From the wash bin, we get a lot of washed manure. That's the water that runs off of the animal after the manure has been washed off of her. It's a major problem because the water has to saturate down into the ground, and there's a fear that we are putting those nitrates down to the drinking water level.
What I saw was a situation in which everyone was frustrated. Chemicals from agriculture often find their way into our lakes and waterways. Nitrates from fertilizer and manure can cause the algae to grow out of all proportion, smothering the other forms of life by using up precious oxygen. The result can be a disaster for every form of life that depends upon this ecosystem.
Corn is one of those major grains that is utilized in livestock production, and this is where the largest amount of insecticide, the largest amount of herbicides, and the largest amount of fertilizers are used in the nation.
In rural America, half of all the water wells are now contaminated by nitrates and other chemicals from agriculture, according to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Today, an entrenched livestock industry, which produces several trillion pounds of manure per year, balks at regulation. In the United States of America, millions of tons of livestock waste are sent into our waterways, and the government is unable to control it. Cattle disrupt ecosystem on over half the world's landmass. In the past half-century alone, more than 60% of the world's rangeland has been damaged by overgrazing, the most pervasive cause of desertification. About 22% of human-generated emissions of methane is released by the world's 2.4 billion belching ruminant livestock. This adds up to 80 million tons per year of a potent greenhouse gas associated with global warming. Meanwhile, ranchers and feed grain farmers contribute significantly to the clearing of the Amazon rainforests, which otherwise work to reverse the warming trends of the Earth by naturally releasing oxygen and absorbing carbon dioxide. U.S. livestock consume 5 times as much grain as is consumed directly by the entire American population. On average, it takes 5.86 pounds of plant protein to produce 1 pound of animal protein, a horrible waste when hunger pervades so many regions of the world.
If we still do not wake up and face these problems by making an effort to become vegan, we will pay the cost when the end of our world is near.